If you've ever been around young children, you'll be familiar with their desire to learn. You'll also be familiar with the fact that their desire to learn can frankly at times be rather annoying.
Why? Why? Why?
Why?
Why? Why do we have to wait so long to eat?
Why can't we just eat?
It's time to eat.
There are many things that they're interested in knowing more about. They're interested in exploring the world around them, much of which is unfamiliar and unknown, which prompts this strong sense of curiosity. Also, if your parents were anything like mine, then you'll remember that your questions as to why things are the way they are was often met with some kind of answer that involved because, such as, because I said so. One of the things about getting older, unfortunately, among the many things that's challenging about getting older, is that we can lose that sense of childlike wonder. And as we lose that childlike wonder, that sense of curiosity about the world, no matter how significant the things we're curious about or how simple or mundane, that's not a good thing, because losing that childlike wonder, losing that sense of curiosity, limits our ability to explore new things and to learn new things. Now, it's understandable that as we get older, we're going to have less time to explore the world. We might have less cognitive time to devote to learning new things. We can't learn new things because we have to do the things we have to do. And as everyone knows, adulting is not fun and can be a challenge, primarily because all the things we're curious about have to be often put on the back burner for things that we have to take care of. And while that's true for many, if not all of us, that doesn't mean we have to completely lose this sense of childlike wonder. It doesn't mean we have to completely get rid of this sense of curiosity. It doesn't mean we have to lose our opportunity to explore the whys and get past the because I said so. It also turns out that that sense of curiosity is crucially important to develop a sense of critical thinking, that this never-ending exploration as to why, to wondering why things are the way they are, provides a solid foundation from which we can build our critical thinking practice. An article in the online journal Fast Company discussed how childlike humility and curiosity can inform, inspire, and unlock new ideas. In terms of the power of asking why, the author says the following, quote, approach every situation, every business challenge with a learning mindset. Put why to work by challenging convention and existing solutions with questions that help you gain knowledge and understanding. Use the power of why in all aspects of your work and in relationships for that matter, for clarity on objectives, reason for a project, and observational learning around consumer behavior. As a first step to this idea of curiosity, exploring, and always asking why, we should encourage ourselves and others to explore many different topics for the purpose of just curiosity rather than mastery. Too often we get locked into this idea that in order to pursue something, we have to become highly proficient or we have to achieve some level of mastery over it. We can just explore things because we're curious about learning something about them. We don't have to worry about having to become the best or master some kind of objective, goal, or skill. Merely being exposed to this new goal, this new skill, this new ability can actually be highly beneficial. So we should definitely encourage ourselves and others to explore as many different topics as possible. In fact, having a breadth of knowledge and experience is vital to a sense of creativity, discovery, and ultimately innovation, as well as critical thinking. David Epstein, in his book Range, While Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World, writes the following, quote, the challenge we all face is how to maintain the benefits of breadth, diverse experience, interdisciplinary thinking, and delayed concentration in a world that increasingly incentivizes and even demands hyper-specialization. There's been a lot of attention given to hyper-specialization, this idea that 10,000 hours devoted to practice, devoted to doing something, will result in a level of mastery. And hyperspecialization is great if you want to become hyperspecialized. But if you want to think creatively, if you want to have breadth and range, then rather than focus on hyper-specialization, it's far better to focus on minimal specialization and a range across different areas. There's a saying in American or in English or in American colloquial culture that if all you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail.
Stop. Hammer time.
Unless, of course, you have a nail gun, and then everything looks like an endless opportunity to do construction. The point here is that if you only have access to one tool or skill set or capability, then every situation is going to look like an opportunity to use that one skill or capability, regardless of whether it's the right skill or capability for that situation. For instance, you can try to drive a screw into a piece of wood with a hammer. If you hit it hard enough and often enough, you might just make progress. At the same time, it would be far better and far easier to use a screwdriver. In fact, in the name screwdriver is the very purpose of the object, to drive a screw. Now, this doesn't mean that a hammer isn't a good tool or a good thing to have, and it doesn't mean that in some way, shape, or form, a screwdriver is a superior tool over a hammer. It just depends what you're trying to do with it. The point is also that by having two tools and knowing how to use both of them, you have greater adaptability and greater opportunity to do more than one thing. The point is that by having more tools and skills, you can use the right one or even use them together. In trying to decide between a hammer and a screwdriver, we might just ask the question, why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Now, this leads to a second point related to the power of curiosity in having range of knowledge and experience. And this is what I call connecting disconnections. If you've ever seen a connect the dot game, you can see that the numbers next to the dots tell you which dot is next in the sequence of dot connecting. You start at 1 and you progress through all the numbers until you reach the end of the dots, at which point a picture will come into view as being completed. The numbers themselves tell you that there's a right way of doing the connect the dots. And you can have connect the dots that range from child connect the dot games all the way now to adult connect the dot games and even naughty connect the dot games. But what if we took away those numbers? At first, it might seem like a confusing series of dots where we don't know where to start and where to end. We don't know what sequence to do, or even if there needs to be a sequence. Why can't we lift our pencil or pen off the paper and move from one dot to another without necessarily making this linear progression? If we take away the numbers, if we take away the idea that we have to go from 1 all the way through the sequence to the end, we have now freed ourselves up to connect the dots in new and innovative ways. We also aren't necessarily limited to just connecting the dots. We can shade in various parts of the paper using colors that we want. The point is that we are now free to explore the possibilities and the potentials on the paper based on our own curiosity and only limited by the possibilities that we can imagine. Related to this idea of going beyond initial impression or formulation of what the approach should be is this idea of cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility refers to our ability to shift our thinking to new approaches when one approach fails. We need to be adaptive and think about ways we can approach new situations and information when one approach may not work, or even if that approach works, just refreshing our vision, refreshing our way of thinking about it can lead to new ways of envisioning the situation or the problem. We might even recognize when something is not working and needs to be changed, and now are able to change it because we have greater flexibility in how we think about it. There's another saying that goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We might rethink that expression to say that a lack of cognitive flexibility is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If all we do is approach a situation in the same way, then odds are we're going to get a pretty similar result. This is why innovative and creative thinking requires us to look at situations differently and not to follow the same pathways that we have in the past. And the way we're better able to do that is by critically thinking about those situations and by integrating our previous knowledge, experiences, and skills that we developed through having a broader sense of curiosity. We can start to develop our own cognitive flexibility by engaging in different kinds of brain games, for instance. Different kinds of brain games are beneficial for developing mental agility, memory, linguistic skills, and attention. So those games that you see in the newspaper or online might actually be beneficial to developing your cognitive flexibility. In fact, the ability to excel at puzzles and brain games has been used to identify those who showed a talent for code breaking in the US military. In the book Joe Rochefort's War, the author relates the following, quote, as part of an effort to build up its code-breaking capability, the Office of Naval Operations in the mid-1920s had inserted puzzles and cryptograms in various US Navy publications, hoping to attract the attention of would-be codebreakers. According to legend, one of those turned out to be Joe Rochefort, who did so well on those exercises that the Navy plucked him off of the USS Arizona and whisked him to Washington. For those not familiar with Joe Rochefort, he was the person who was in charge of Station Hypo in Pearl Harbor. This was a team of cryptanalysts and codebreakers who were tasked with trying to look through all of the intelligence being collected around Japanese naval movements and to try to figure out what they were planning to do. His team was responsible for identifying the letters AF as being code for Midway Island and the intent of the Imperial Japanese Navy to launch an attack on Midway. His ability and his team's ability to work together, to think creatively, to take these little tidbits of information and connect the dots in new ways allowed Admiral Chester Nimitz to then launch his own surprise attack, which resulted in the Battle of Midway, which has been seen as the turning point of the war in the Pacific in World War II. So here's a really nice example of how using brain games, of how assembling a team of people who had a range of experience. And one of the things that Rochefort was known for was running a relatively flat organizational structure in which people, no matter their position, could contribute based on their expertise, skills, and talents to really help connect those dots to understand what Japanese movements meant and what was going to be coming as a result of those movements. Now, here are some tips that you can use to encourage creativity in yourself and in your organization as well. First, you might create groups around diverse topics and themes. There is a larger movement in organizations now called employee resource groups, and they're typically established around various social categories and groups that have been socially marginalized. However, you might also think about creating employee resource groups around different hobbies, different areas of interest, different activities, different games, different topics, whatever. The point is to build a community in which people can come together and learn new things from one another. You can also give people space to pursue things that interest them just for the sake of learning something new. Many companies provide resources and time for people to try new activities and to try learn about new things. And you really don't have to pay for any of this. There's endless amounts of information on YouTube, on LinkedIn Learning, on Coursera, on Udemy, and other sources where you can go in and just try to learn something new, something you've always wanted to know more about, but never thought you had the time to pursue. You can also allow people to bring their hobbies to work. Establish a lunch and share program in which people can talk to one another about hobbies they have, things that one person knows about and the other person would like to know more about. The idea here is to connect people within your organization so that those who know how to do something are teamed with those who want to know how to do that thing. And as a result, you can create greater community and have people learn more things, which expanding that cognitive flexibility, that curiosity can pay dividends in terms of their ability to critically think. To kick all this off, you might create an inventory of skills and capabilities that people already possess. There's an approach in community development called assets-based community development, where to build a community, you start from the inside out. You first take a list, take an inventory of what people already know how to do, And then you figure out how you can leverage those existing assets and skill sets to further develop the community. So take the time to do some kind of inventory. What kinds of hobbies, skills, interests, capabilities, no matter how small, do people have, and how might we utilize that existing knowledge to further enhance people's curiosity, to get them engaged in learning something new, and to further develop their cognitive flexibility. The point here is to not stifle the sense of curiosity, but to nourish it. And we know that curiosity is a key element in improving critical thinking. So start small, take those initial steps to encourage people to ask why, to encourage the opportunity to explore the why, and to allow people to connect with one another to facilitate a sense of range of experience, a sense of curiosity, a sense of community, and develop their critical thinking.